Hello, Power Up Gamers. Welcome to my weekly video. I'm Chuck, co-host of the Power Up Gamers for Accessibility. I was talking to Jared, and I was thinking about doing a video this week about how to create plot hooks off of like monster stat blocks and their backgrounds. And then I'll be honest with you, I was in a Harbinger game earlier. If you don't know that, it's part of AbTab's, one of the worlds they're working on. You can look up in AbTab and get information on the world. And it was run by Jacob Noonan, and I'll tell you what, it was a really great game. Really awesome role playing, really great storytelling. I had a ball. It was a really good game. But it got me thinking, and some of the stuff that was said in the game with like Jacob and some of the other players. And I remember reading an article a while back about kind of the different types of role play, like being in role play. And what I mean by that is like, okay, I am Thurgar, and I will smash you. And the more descriptive telling of like, this brawny dwarf steps into the room, and you can just feel his presence, this rock hardness of his personality. And one of the things Jacob said was he's talking about, he kind of tries to focus on the five senses. And even in the game, he was talking about how he felt like he could do that better. And so I had never thought of it that way, but that's a good way to look at it to start. And so I would say that it's a good way to think about the five senses and pick those five things out. And, I'll be honest with you, I spent almost 20 years of my life working in fast food, and the thing I did the most was training and working with especially teenagers. And one of the things I learned about training is we look at something sometimes and it's over daunting. One of the girls that worked for me when I was going to college trying to get a degree, she wound up going there at the same time. She'd just come out of high school, and we were talking one day, and she was worried about social anxiety. She was afraid to make friends, and it bothered her. And, she wanted to make friends. She wanted to be cool with people. She was afraid of it. And we happened to stand by this brick building right there, and I looked at her and I said, the problem is a lot of us look at what we have to do. And I said, so imagine this brick building. You realize you're going to have to build this whole brick building. And the reality, what you really have to do is kind of ignore the whole big picture and just take the first step. And so what I mean by that is, let's say you want to work on being more descriptive in a game. And I'll give you an example. My character in the Harbinger game saw something so horrible that basically and I even reacted, and then his hands are fumbling for the helmet. And as he clasps it off, he throws up in his helmet. As he pulls the helmet up off, the puke comes out around his neck seal. And so, taking what Jacob was talking about there, the five senses, how could I have enhanced that idea and get it across? And so then you think about, well, okay, what did I hit on the five senses there? So you take, and back to that one brick at a time, what you can learn to do is say, okay, this week in this game, I'm going to work on sound. So how can I describe things more audio about them? It's like I could have said with that puking that, you heard that throwing up, and then you could have even heard it kind of splatter on his chest plate as it come out and seeped out and kind of going down and oozing. And you take and add stuff like that and then focus on the one sense for that so many games. And what I know about learning something is it's like creating a program. That once you've got it a habit, you don't even have to think about doing it. So pick one sense and work on it until you realize you're doing it without even really effort. Then pick another sense and work on it. Like with, say, visual on this one, I could have made it where instead of it just seeping down his thing, I could have, and he pulls up the seal and he's kind of shaking and fighting to get, and it kind of splatters all over the place as he's doing it, and then you keep practicing that visual stuff, that getting across your visual perspective. And this is going to sound a little out there, a little odd, but I read a book a few years ago with a psychologist, but he had studied some of the practice of jiu-jitsu. And it wasn't necessarily he was talking about the physical part about it. He was talking some of the mental tricks and things that they do. One of the things that he was talking about is that we all tend to respond to the world or react to the world primarily by one of the three senses. Now, I have to wonder sometimes it's a little more complicated than that, but what that's really telling you is, okay, let's say, and I would take somebody that's really big into music, is for them, their primary way of dealing with the world is sound. Speaking, singing. So when you do things in their primary way of sensing the world, that connects with them better. So some people, the sound is going to have a bigger connection. For some people, the visual, the better you get at telling a visual story so that it sticks in their mind, the more it's going to pull them in. Now, touch, of course, you can't really, it's harder to do, but even then you can still kind of pick about how something feels. A lot of times our brain works when you can connect with something, it'll fire in your brain, it'll make you think of something, when you describe how something feels. And the more that you get good at doing that, the more you drive other people to do it too. I talk about finding a really good game, and I'll be honest with you, like the game a couple hours ago, I just had amazing people to play with. And I'll tell you what, man, sometimes it's frustrating. I have a physical game I play with every Wednesday, and I go in, and even the first few times I play with them, I'm like, I don't know how I'm to get across them and get them a little more involved in the game and get them a little more. And I've been working on it and trying to do it myself, and but like especially the guy in the group, he doesn't seem as involved with some of the more emotional things that happen. But I did notice, like last week, he talked about doing his thunderclap for his druid, and he did this and kind of gave it I'm thinking, okay, there it is. It's starting to be seen. So you get into a game that people are really good, and they'll elevate you. I've noticed it with me. There's some games I've been in where I'm not that impressive of a role player. And then I get into other games that these people are already impressive role players, and they just up my game. And then we talk about these five senses. The better you get at doing that stuff, you're going to feed each other. You create a feedback loop of just everybody kind of working together and getting better, building up, and just making a more there feeling, more visceral, more like you're there and the immersion is there. So, if you're not in a game where people are really big into that or getting there, my advice is pick a little bit and try to just be like a little more visual this week. Like instead of just saying I swing the sword, I take 2-step hop and slam my sword down on the, just add a little piece in. Take that first step. After you take that first step and you keep going, it'll get easier, you'll get more confident. And you'll be more confident, be even more creative, You don't want to... I know we hold back sometimes because we're afraid to make a fool of ourselves. I know for those of us that have disabilities, it's already hard for us sometimes socially. I don't know if everybody does this, but I'm sure a lot of us do. We get those feelings of inadequacy or that we're not as good as somebody else because we can't do something they can. And I won't lie, there's one part of me that goes, fuck them. You get out there and do whatever the hell you want. It's not easy sometimes, especially when you know that you can't do things or things come easier to other people, I'll be honest, I spent probably the first 6 or 7 years of schooling being tutored all my free time to learn to read. It took me forever to learn to read. Man, once I finally got it and got into it, I don't stop reading. I read so much it's not funny. I can read a 600-page book in a couple days if I don't watch it. But we gotta realize sometimes you're holding yourself back. And the only way you're going to move forward is to take the chance and just do it. And you'll find that your games will become even more fun the more involved you get in them. The more dynamic the game becomes, the more that you can have the role-playing moments. It makes it so much more fun. I'll be honest, the more I've gotten back into the game after the last year or so, and I'm seeing more of this role-playing and more of this dynamic, it's not so much just the DM's structured world or story. It's something that grows and, especially from a DM perspective, the more I get you involved in the world and the more you get involved in it, you're invested in it, and so you want to have more fun with it, and you enjoy it more too. And it creates this, like I said, a feedback loop of energy. and it makes the game better and more fun. And, like I said, I think a lot of us, especially, I talk in perspective a lot of times for people that are getting newer into the game, but for all of us, it's taken a little time to try to just be a little better. Go out there and watch videos if you have to. There's all kinds of people out there. A lot of them can probably explain things better than I can. That's one of the things I'm trying to work on is how to get a little more organized in my videos and how to make them a little better. And I just want to be the best role player I can have. I want to give everybody else a good experience. I want to give myself a good experience. And and I'll take Jaron as an example. He has a problem with speech sometimes, and I'm sure that gets him. But I'll tell you right now, he's one hell of a creative guy. He has something to bring to the table. As long as you're willing to be open and learn how to play, you have something to add to the game. Now, yes, you're going to run into some people out there that are just, the game's played the way I believe it should be played, and that's just it. My advice to that is run. Unless you have experience teaching people, and even then, I've been there. Some people you just can't. You want to find those people that are willing to try to have a good time. I'll be honest, I played in some games where really half the time we're just bullshitting. But that's part of the game. That's what it is. It's you socialize, you have a good time. You start getting some of these one-shots and stuff. You can't really waste your time like that. But just take that first step. Put that first brick down and get out there and try. You'll find yourself having a lot more fun. And you'll find that you get a lot better. And, you'll attract more people that play like you do too, especially getting online and dealing with more people. Now if it's a home group, that's more of it's going to take time. And especially if there's not a lot of it going around the table, you really have to be patient. It's going to take little times and little things to slip in for people to start picking it up. And then in that situation, you really just kind of have to role model it. If you have a group that's not really big into that or a lot of shy people, then I would advise you be the one that takes the first step. Take that first step and, hey, pick one of those 5 senses, and this week I'm going to try to add one of those senses to my role play style, to my character. And I'm going to get better at using that sense when I talk. And you'll notice it over time, and like I said, it may be frustrating, but you'll start seeing it come out of the other players too. I would say, get out there and take that first step, Power Up Gamers, and have fun gaming.